All right, and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Yeti, and this is Yeti Talks, where we get down in the weeds talking with game developers and their projects. Today, I have David Breen. Did I say that right? Breen?
That is perfect.
Excellent. David Breen with us today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, it is my pleasure. Let's just jump right into it. Can you introduce the game to me? We're playing a game here that's called Omega Mouse Zero. Is that right?
Yes, Omega Mouse Zero.
Tell me a little bit about it. Where did you get the idea to start putting this game together?
Well, back in 1990s when I first started making games as a kid, and I used a program called Click and Play. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Like
It was
Myth?
made by it was made by Maxis that made SimCity. It was a like one of the first programs that came out that allowed you to make video games.
Oh, okay, cool.
All the characters in the world of Omega Mouse, I made these characters up when I was like 12 years old, and it's just been kind of the thing that I've been doing, never given up on it, and got to the point where I did give up on it. And through my whole 20s, I just kind of partied and didn't know what I wanted to do with life and just played a lot of games. And then when I got into my 30s, I realized what was holding me back was I didn't have the skill set to do what I imagined I wanted to do. And so I went back to school to learn 3D animation.
Okay.
And that was right when Unreal Engine 4 came out. So I kind of shifted from I was going to get into doing 3D animation for cartoons and commercials, all that kind of stuff. But then Unreal Engine 4 came out, and it was kind of like the new version of Click and Play, where you didn't have to really know how to code. It was more a visual scripting system. And I was just off and running after that. I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for.
Now, was that because how did you when you went into C++, did you get a lot of experience in there before deciding that it wasn't for you and that you needed something a little more visually interactive?
Yeah, I'm not I'm not a coding guy.
Okay.
Like I'm the artist kind of guy and do characters and come up with stories. And so, but yeah, coding was always holding me back. I tried it several times, tried to tackle it, and I'm just like, oh, this is way over my head, too much syntax and all the rules and everything. I'm just not that technical.
Mm-hmm.
But Unreal Engine 4 just has that system with nodes and you plug the pins
Yeah, the
in.
blueprints.
And yeah, and you can the language, I can speak that language. And so then I'm like, a whole new world opens up, and I go,
Yeah.
oh, now I can do pretty much. So I have 10 years experience with Unreal now, and I feel like I can
Oh,
do
wow.
whatever I want to do. Like somebody can come to me with an idea, and I'll know how to do it. And that's pretty cool.
Did you ever play around with other game engines? You mentioned Unreal. Did you ever try Unity or anything else?
I used UDK 3 before 4 came out, and I did use Unity. I was gonna go with Unity after UDK 3, but then Unreal Engine 4 came out. I quickly switched over. Unity was also kind of a nightmare, and it just ended up turning into a thing where I was buying marketplace assets and
Okay.
it just copying snippets of code because I didn't know how to code.
Yeah.
So a lot of limitations there.
Have you picked up more on the technical side of things playing around with blueprints? Because they really allow the ability to go from blueprints to the C++ side pretty seamlessly.
Yeah. Um, I've learned a lot about how the logic of it all works. It's very similar. And so, you know, kind of
So
downplay it like, oh, I'm not a real coder, but I'm doing basically the same thing, just in a different format.
nobody needs to
But
be on a pedestal saying they're a real coder or not. I've worked in
yeah,
application development. I've been a Scrum coach. Some of these guys are so full of hot air that it's hilarious. So,
I, I I can barely install Visual Studio.
oh yeah, it's been more straightforward over the recent years. But that kind of
Yeah,
development environment, I think, is one of the better ones. Blueprint was something I was super excited about. I don't think I was the only one when it got released. When I saw the potential, I was like, oh my God, there's a visual interaction with the ability to make video games. The sky's the limit. So I got into it, and I like I said earlier, I'll play about 15, 20 minutes worth of tutorials and play around with it, and then I'll get distracted. So I really think the effort goes to those who stay with it more than 20 minutes. And hats off to you for putting together what you did. I was able to go on your website, check that out. I love the YouTube video that you put together, the trailer for Omega Mouse. I noticed that what was the stylish choice for going with an AI voiceover instead of doing your own or friends and family?
Well, that intro is actually the only part in the game that's AI. I do the rest of the voices. And what happened? I have a music guy who's really super talented
nice.
from Poland, and he's done like 10 or 12 original songs for the game, and they're all in the demo. But what was the question again?
Yeah, we were just talking about.
Totally spaced it.
No, yeah, your question threw off my question, so let me just kind of take a step back here. You mentioned a music guy. Does he have his own company kind of going, or is it just somebody you've been staying close contact with that helps make music? Or tell me a little bit about that.
He just saw my trailer and hit me up, and I told him, "Hey, I'm a starving artist. I appreciate your interest, but I can't pay you until the game starts making money, and then we can work things out."
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't care. What do you need?" And every time he gives me a song, and he's like, "What's next? What's next?" And
That's awesome. How many songs do you think he ended up making?
so far, 10 to 12, something like that. And
Excellent.
they're really good.
Has he been pretty reliable? Like, it can be challenging to work with other independent artists. Timing and reliability and all that. Do you feel like this guy was pretty good?
I just let him do his thing, because I'm not paying him right now. So
yeah.
I just take what I can get. And
we call those interns in the big leagues.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good process. He just says, "Well, what do you want it to sound like?" And I'll take, 3 songs from games I grew up playing that I really liked. I'm like, "Here, mesh these 3 together and make it something like that." So.
Okay. Yeah. I noticed on the genre description, you described it Metroidvania. It totally threw me off. I've never seen that word used for a genre. Can you give me a little bit of background on what that means?
Well, yeah, the Metroidvania genre basically is non-linear. So you're not going through levels left to right. It's just kind of like you start in the center or whatever, and you explore a map. And in order to progress, you have to collect keys to unlock doors or collect upgrades that allow you to jump higher or, things like that.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I played Metroid as a kid, but I never got into, I'm presuming Castlevania was the intent of the last part of the word. But I definitely grew up in that era. I mean, when I was in the 90s playing, oh God, what was it? The Sega handheld, Sega Gear, wasn't it? I think that was what it was called. 8 AA freaking batteries. But it had a lot of those games you were just describing, left to right, platformer style. And oftentimes you didn't even get to go backwards, even if you wanted to. It just was the game loaded forward and you were stuck.
So I'm thinking about, I kind of thought of it today. I kind of coined the phrase, instead of Metrovania, it's more like a Metroid Megavania.
Okay.
And the Mega would be for Mega Man. So what I'm doing is the storyline revolves around a version of the Multiverse story. And so every universe is a level or a separate world. And each world is nonlinear. And so, how in Mega Man, you can pick which level you want to go to right off the bat. Similar to that.
Yeah. I haven't played Mega Man in years. It's been a long time. I probably played Bomberman several times over. So in the game itself, do you you start out in a control room and it looks like you can go left, you can go right. You can't start out going left, but there's the option to eventually make your way back that way. And later in
Correct.
the games, do you have kind of different areas that it's not left or right, but you have to find ways to kind of go on a different axis of movement? Or
Um, it kind of follows that formula. And there's times where you have to go through one path, but then I try to minimize backtracking by when you take a different path to go back, or you unlock a new ability that allows you to backtrack faster. So, like
oh,
my whole
interesting.
goal, yeah, it's like my goal's kind of been to minimize annoyances in games. I also have a checkpoint system where there's tons of checkpoints. So if you die because there's an obstacle that's a little difficult, I don't want people to have to start back at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I just start them right back at the obstacle. Just kind of play it by ear. Where the more difficult parts, I'm more forgiving about that kind of thing.
Yeah, no reason to be Dark Souls. Like those guys are doing a lot of drugs up there for
I don't want
how
people to
difficult
rage
to make
quit the game.
that game. They're like, hey, let's cater to the 1% that stay up till 4 in the morning grinding our games. Like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, once it's established, maybe in the sequel, I'll step up the difficulty a little bit, but or just make a hard mode.
Yeah. So what let's take a zoom back here for a minute. I had asked you what inspired you to make this game, and you had talked about getting into game development. You went to college. Do you mind if I ask you what college you went to?
Santa Rosa Junior College.
Nice.
They had a state of the art 3D modeling program at the time. It was at the end of 2012,
Okay.
and they just got a whole new computer lab like that year.
Nice. They still
So
use the
yeah,
word junior in California, don't they? Side rant here, but most like other states, they've adapt the word junior to community. I don't know why. They felt like that was a better evolution of the term. So you tend to see junior colleges have transformed into the term community college. It's
yeah,
irrelevant, and I find them interchangeable. But even the one that I went to in Oklahoma used to, like in the 70s and 80s, was called junior, and then they changed the name to community. So kind of interesting feat there. But junior or community, I tell you what, these colleges are a real asset to this country, because if you don't have a full blown scholarship and you have to pay out of pocket, or even if you have to find grants, they're going to be the best path forward for your freshman sophomore year. It helps you determine, get your basics out of the way, helps you understand which direction you want to go with your degree, and ultimately you can transfer if you want to, or leave with an associate's, or just leave with a bunch of handful of credits. Either way, fantastic choice of college. I'm thrilled you didn't say something like DeVry or Full Sail
yeah.
University. So
I almost went to the in San Francisco, the arts, whatever it's called,
okay,
University of
a
Arts.
for-profit school of some sort.
Yeah, I thought I was covered in everything, and then I see how much it costs. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go back
Yeah,
home and work on a game.
that's great, because for-profit schools, they are still a college, but their cost per credit hour is about 3 times as much as your state-funded junior community college or university. Universities are more expensive than community colleges, but they're still quite a bit cheaper than a for-profit school. DeVry doesn't do as well these in recent years, but
Mm.
Full Sail University down in Florida is still rocking pretty hard, and they really push the whole game development aspect: 3D animation, coding, project management, whatever section you want to get into. So I'm just highlighting the alternative, and I'm proud of you for picking the junior college. So, and I would want that to be the same for anybody listening to this.
Yeah, good information, good podcast. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about when you were a child or teenager. What kind of games did you play? What was your favorite kind of game?
I was big into Japanese RPGs, so I think Final Fantasy
Oh yeah.
3, 6. I think that's the greatest game of all time. Maybe Chrono Trigger.
Ooh.
could top that. Like those are the two best of all time. But I also like action RPGs like Landstalker for the Genesis, Link to the Past,
Okay.
of course, Super Metroid. Final Fantasy VII was like a religious experience the day that came out.
See, I had went from
I was gonna say
N64. Tekken. Okay. Yeah. So you got some fighting games in there. You probably played Street Fighter as well.
Yeah, I'm a big Tekken guy. I used to hang out at the arcade all day.
Oh, nice. You put the quarters on the screen waiting for your turn, right?
I was the best in town. Then I went to Berkeley for a tournament and just got humbled.
Dude, I can't relate with that more than what you just said, because I would kind of zooming forward. I played a lot of Halo, the original one on the Xbox. So I went from N64 to Xbox, the original. Like there was a gap. I didn't get the GameCube. I didn't get the PS1. And so I didn't get the PS2 for like until 2003. So it was I think I ended up getting a slim PS2 actually. But when I got the Xbox, Halo came with it. I was in love with it. I played the campaign. Thought I was the shit. And I would do LAN parties with, family, some local friends, people at school. We'd start getting together and playing together, split screen, LANing, 4 TVs, 4 Xboxes, 16 players. I would dominate, right? And then I stepped into, for the first time, a competitive ring. And I just thought I was the hottest shit there was on the block and got, like you said, humbled, I think is the best way to put it, because I didn't know anything. I wasn't good at all. I was terrible. And I was probably the highlight of their entertainment for that evening with how badly I just got reorganized to the cellular level. And this
their ego dissolve in real time.
Oh man, dude, I was talking so much shit. I think this actually happened because I was in tennis lessons in my freshman year. This would have been circa 2005, and so there was people talking about Halo, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm the best," and then they're like, "What do you mean you're the best?" And I was like, "I'm just, I could wreck you." And then they were talking about these other kids they knew, and we all met up. There was probably 30 people in the house for this one-on-one event. And I was so out of the loop, I didn't even realize the meta of the competitive side of first-person shooters. Not just Halo, but first-person altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Unique experience. So a lot of that stuff was ingrained in me at an early age. And then even after that, so once I was experiencing the competitive side, it was open doors. I started going to local tournaments. I started competing more invasively with my friends. The LAN parties until 2 or 3 in the morning. It was a fantastic time in my life. Nothing like it these days. Now I'm a working professional and family man. Just God.
Yeah, the adult life. Our mall is so pathetic now. The arcade's gone. Everything's gone. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a Planet and Fitness that moved in. They basically took
at least
up
something moved in, right?
Yeah.
That most malls are. You go on YouTube, you look up abandoned malls, and it's channel after channel of douchebags exploring abandoned buildings, and some of them break stuff, some of them don't. But
skateboarding,
yeah, and it is a relic of its era. Most people like malls didn't survive online shopping. Like some retailers did, but collectively, it just, I don't know. It didn't seem like something that should go away. I would always go to EB Games. I'd always go to GameStop, and it just was my place. I'd go to the mall. Like there's 50,000 freaking clothes shops up here in one game store, so I'm gonna go to the game store. I don't need to look at all these shirts.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's all clothing stores.
And the occasional puppy store. There's always weird puppy mills in some malls. It's like, all right, whatever. So you said Final Fantasy 3/6. For those who don't know, Japan came out with Final Fantasy 3. In the US, they released it as Final Fantasy 6. I don't think it was because they wanted to get ahead of chronological order. It just some really weird political issue with the gaming like the naming convention of the game, and they felt like the US was ahead of Japan. They had released special versions in English and then called those predecessors. And then 6 came out. But yes, I was very influenced with Final Fantasy 3/6. It had some really outstanding character development. I mean, and these are sprites we're talking about. And the fact that I got so involved with it, I think, was an incredible statement. I don't even think modern Final Fantasy captures the attention of people that they did back in the day. And that was a large part. I wouldn't call them an indie studio, but they were certainly a smaller studio. I mean, the whole name Final Fantasy came from the fact that this was the studio's last attempt at making a business endeavor. And so they called it Final for that reason. And this is it. This is everything in it. And I never played the games, technically the ones that came before Final Fantasy 3/6. I think I may have seen some video footage or dabbled in them for a few minutes in my my early 20s when simulators were more popular, or not simulators but emulators. But I had missed that opportunity to really play. And so, God, Kefka, man, what a badass that guy was.
Speaking of Kefka, Dancing Mad, the boss theme. Some of the music in Omega Mouse, you should see or hear some inspiration from that. That was one of the songs I pointed out to my sound guy. I'm like, you got to incorporate some of that into there.
Okay. Are you going to release a separate soundtrack sometime down the road?
Yeah, I'm going to do that very soon. It's so awesome. Good, especially there's a location environment in the game called the Mystic Caves. And so he's made me two Mystic Cave soundtracks. And it's like, I told him, you just make like 10 songs like this and you could sell it as a good mood CD. You know? I
mean,
dude, it's so good. The guy's so good.
If you even wanted, you could go on YouTube and put on some kind of, if you look up soundtracks like synth waves, there's just a neon cyberpunk car driving down the road for 3 hours.
Yeah, I listen to that shit all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, you could employ something like that, get it on YouTube, get views, get traffic to your channel. Like, hey, this came from this game. Click here to look at the Steam store.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, who knows how it'll take off. You don't have to put all the tracks on there, but loop a couple of them for a few hours. People love that stuff. I'll play games and throw up synth waves all the time, just in the background.
Right on. No, what's cool is a lot of the stuff he sent me was kind of raw. So he'd send me, 15-minute song. It's just him coming around, and then I'm splicing out the parts I want to arrange the soundtrack.
How long have you been working with the sound engineer? Let's just call him a sound engineer.
He only came into the picture about 4 months ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you've been working on this since 2021.
Yeah. There's also there's another previous Omega Mouse game that I released a year ago, and that was the game when I first started learning Unreal Engine that I started developing. And I wasn't sure what I was making. I had no idea. I was just happy to have them running around shooting stuff.
Yeah.
And originally that game is a overhead third-person game. But when Metroid Dread came out, I remembered how much I loved the 2D Metroidvania style. So I was like, you know what? Next game, I got to change everything. And I'm way happier for it. I've had a much better time working on this game than I did the previous one.
That's fantastic. What did you do while making the game? Did you have a main job that you worked, or did you just what was your strategy to balance life as well as making it?
Life? What?
What's that?
No, I pushed life aside to work on this. No, but I do freelance work, graphic design. I got some people I do Photoshop stuff for.
Oh, nice.
And they pay me very well. But
really?
That's one aspect. It's very nice to have that, because I can spend 10 minutes on a logo and make $100. and they're willing to pay it.
What the
So
fuck have I been doing with my whole life? Here I am in IT, you know.
there's people out there.
Did
There's
you
people
open a
out there that
ticket?
own. I was just gonna say, there's people out there that have a lot of money. Like one of my clients, he owns a tennis club, so he's got lots of money, and so he's like, "How much do I owe you for that?" And I'm, I'll just highball it until he says no, and he's not saying no. He just keeps sending me work.
You're like,
so.
1,000. He's like, okay, good. You're like, great.
No, my first job I did for him was when I was in going to school in Santa Rosa, and he wanted me to take. He had a picture of his daughters playing tennis, and he just wanted me to crop them out and put a different background on it.
He wanted to crop his daughters out? Why would you do that?
Yeah, crop the background out. But yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so I was taking a Photoshop class at the time that was showing us the new crop out tool that was just released. And so
what year was
it
this?
Took me, 2013.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and so it just looks so freaking clean. Like this new tool, just if I had to do it the old way, forget about it.
Yeah.
And I think I worked on it for 2 hours and made $350. So,
damn. Did he ever give you some recommendations to work with, or how did you expand your clientele after that one guy?
Well, I had a guy in Santa Rosa. I was hanging out with a bunch of gamers, and they had warehouse space, and they turned it into an office, and we'd all hang out.
What?
And they would rent the extra space to these guys that did T-shirts.
Okay.
And a custom T-shirt design press. And so I was working for them too, and then making recreating certain logos that were in low resolution that a company wanted to have remade. I was doing stuff like that, and it just word spreads. My dad owns a furniture store, and I do commercials for him.
Okay.
I did a 10-second commercial for Halloween of a zombie walking down the street.
Nice.
And he told me that the retention rate was through the roof on the ad. Like people watched the whole thing. Like, there you go.
There's your calling. Man, furniture stores, that's a very interesting business.
Hey, if I ever need a couch,
Yeah, right.
You get people giving away perfectly good couches every time they get a new one.
Oh my God. Do you go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, which is the new Craigslist? He's like, look up couches and type the word couch in your local Facebook Marketplace. I'm telling you, You will come across so many that you can't even click on all of them. But they're used. Any of them could have dead bodies in them, drugs. You just don't know. And that was always the sketchy gamble. And free couch, but it's on the side of the curb for the past week. It's like, oh.
Yeah, you don't want those.
Yeah. That's awesome that all that kind of accumulated towards the direction that you're going now, especially in the artistic direction. I think that's really inspiring for a lot of game developers because people have an idea of what they want to make, but there's a technical barrier to some level, and you really have to figure out how to bring the game together on multiple faucets. And with the blueprints with Unreal Engine that help make that door wider, I was trying to watch this hour and a half long video of make your first horror game tutorial video for Unreal Engine 5. And I was going through, it's all blueprints, and I'm playing around with it, messing with assets, and it was fun. But again, it's always like I get 20, 30 minutes into something, and there's a butterfly. I'm like, oh, look at the butterfly. Oh, I wander off. Whatever the butterfly may be.
I just have this trait where, like, I guess it's my ego or something, where I can't walk away from the computer if I haven't figured out what the glitch or the problem is.
That's awesome.
I have to, in order for my mind to be at ease so I can sleep. Otherwise, I'm just thinking, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? And so, I've just spent, countless nights just till 4 a.m, just, does this work? No, that didn't work. Did it work? Oh, well, it's not going to work. And then I'll turn the computer back on. Yes, it is. And then actually get it to work, and then I can go to sleep and wake up and work on the next thing. But you have to like force yourself
Mm-hmm.
to just like set a task and then complete it. Like
Yeah.
it's baby steps. Like a lot
That
of days I'm kind of lazy. So I'll just tell myself, just open the program and just do one thing on the list, the easiest thing on the list. And of course, once I'm there, once the program's open and I'm doing that thing, I'm like, I'll do 2 on the list, and then it snowballs.
I'll call that the Vegeta approach to anything because of his level of dedication to training, and towards I may be more of the Yamcha type. Just you disappear in the background after a while. You're like, oh, okay, I tried.
Yeah.
I was good for a few minutes, and then I got destroyed. Tell me a little bit about your development process. What is a life cycle like for you? When you were putting this game together, did you plan it out at all, or was it really ad hoc?
The first one I released was not planned out. I had an idea in my mind of how it would play, and it seemed great. But then when I put it into practice, I'm asking myself, is this fun? Is this like a good game, or is it just another game? Because you're just learning right now. And, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to tear your game apart. And at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not having fun with this. I don't know what to do with it. And this other guy I know who's also learning Unreal Engine, he just said, you've been working on it for so long, man. You're spinning in circles. Just take what you got and put it up on Steam and just call it like, whatever it is, a prototype or something.
Sure.
That's what I did. The first game, there's like 6 levels and it's an infinite shooter game. You just go into a level and the enemies keep coming and you see how long you can survive. So I just threw that out there. And but the process for Omega Mouse Zero, what was specifically was the question about it?
Just talking about your development cycle. So how did you plan things out? How did you organize the structure of putting the game together? Like, did you have storyboards? Did you have implementations for okay, I'm going to do this activity this week and then a different activity next week? Or was it really just every Saturday you opened it up and contributed a few minutes to it?
No, pretty much as soon as I wake up, I'm on the computer and I'm listening to the news, drinking coffee, and then launching Unreal. And I keep a notepad list of everything that needs to be worked on. If dialogue comes to me in a moment that I feel is worded perfectly, I'll jot that down. And I couldn't do any of this without a list. You have to have a list to refer to. And it's pretty much whatever I feel like working on at any given time.
Do you use any kind of tools to support your ideas? Like, is it Microsoft OneNote, Word, or what kind of tools do you use to supplement your ideas and your planning?
I have been using Chat GPT just to bounce ideas off of.
That's
it
almost
really
inevitable these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. It's like having a personal secretary, and I'm having a conversation with it,
Yep.
and we're able to throw ideas back and forth, and it can remember the idea and articulate it in a way that's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm copy pasting anything. It's more like a philosophy.
Yeah.
Like you're having a conversation about what approach do you think? And
Yeah.
it spits out some really good stuff.
I want to tell you, anyone's in trouble that is doing a one-to-one copy paste of Chat GPT or Bard or whatever is out there. It's about being influenced for what it gives you and then translating that to something else. If you're writing a book or if you're making a video game or making a movie or whatever, it's just about, like you said, that conversation. Anybody listening to this that says, I'm never going to use Chat GPT, you are setting yourself against a handicap. The AI has already won. All we can do is interact with it to accelerate ourselves. Otherwise, we're just going to get left in the dust. So it's, you're right on the spot with what you need to use to keep this moving forward. So that's great.
Yeah, it's like an example. I was asking it for ideas for a name for Omega Mouse's helmet. And I said it's a helmet that gives them the power to manipulate time. And it spits out a bunch of names and, Chrono this and Chrono that. And then I said, okay, what do you think of Chrono Dome? Because it's on his head. It's a dome. And it manipulates time. And it comes back and it goes, oh, that's a great idea. And then it explained why it was a good idea. And I'm like, damn. I don't think it's sentient, but
yeah,
they put a lot of money into this thing.
Oh God, dude,
They did a good job.
I once asked ChatGPT to write me a cover letter to apply for a job, and it gave me a goddamn novel. Like I had to go back and prompt it, like, give me a cover letter no longer than 3 paragraphs, because it just went on and on. I'm like, I don't think anybody's gonna read this. It's
imagine kids these days in school; they're just probably using it to write all their papers.
Yep. It takes a special eye, and I think teachers need to be involved with ChatGPT to know what the common language it uses. Because, for example, if you are applying for jobs and you're using ChatGPT, it always has a certain tone in the first few sentences and throughout its structure. So if you are a teacher, you need to use it so you know what to look for. You cannot rely on other people's tools that say, we can detect AI writing. That's bullshit. You can't, because it's a combination of whatever text it can pull out of the internet. So there's no way to say, yeah, this is ChatGPT from some kind of where teachers are putting essays into a bucket and then having an AI read it and determine, oh, this was plagiarized. Like, no. That's very incorrect. And if you really want to know if somebody's using ChatGPT or not, you need to use it yourself a lot, because then you'll get familiar with how it works.
Did you see that? There's a viral video right now. This guy named Tyler, he's a stand-up comedian.
What's the last name? Do you know? Or
Tyler Fisher?
Okay.
And he did a impersonation of somebody getting the Neuralink in their brain, and they turn into Elon Musk and start talking like him. His impression was so good, like the mannerisms is perfect. He just needs to raise his pitch a little bit, but yeah, it's freaking great.
So what we want to really accomplish is getting to Mars, and he's not a great person to interview, but a great person to be friends with. Like, he loves games. He used to be super gaming competitive in the early 2000s. It's never really left his personality, but he's right there in that early stages of people who love gaming. And that's my favorite part about Elon Musk is everything he's done. It's great and dandy, but the dude loves video games. And if I ever met Elon, I love SpaceX. I love Tesla to a certain degree. And I love Neuralink. But, dude, let's just, what's your gamer tag? Let's play some games. I don't give a shit about anything else.
It's probably where the Cybertruck was influenced from Halo.
Halo was originally created by Apple. I don't know if you knew that. And it was sold to Microsoft as an IP. I forget the politics behind it, but they were just like, we don't know what to do with it, so here you go. We'll sell it to you for $1 million or whatever. And they came back in and touched it up graphically and focused it more so on what they wanted to accomplish. I think the Apple version was more open-ended, and then Microsoft made the campaign. They made it more streamlined and focused on what you're trying to do. Simplified it, which is oftentimes what you need with an idea. You spend years on it and you overcomplicate it, but the next person can help re-simplify it for you. So with a lot of that artwork that they brought into it, that helps me think about what was the influence for your artwork for this game, and you know there's the character choice, but where did you get the artwork for the mouse itself and the cats in the background? Tell me a little about all that.
Well, I'm ready to sell out to Nintendo or Disney, whoever wants to be my publisher. No, it's like I was making. I don't know how it started. My dad would tell me stories about two crime-fighting mice. He knew that I liked to watch DuckTales and Chippendales Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck. Those are my favorite cartoons. So he would tell me stories at night about two crime-fighting mice named Jack and Max, and he kind of just got me started with these characters, and that's all I did. I'd have friends come over and we would draw the characters. This one's a villain, that's the hero, and we'd actually have a fight over which one would be a bad guy or a good guy. And just kept doing it. Got burned out. My parents were really helping me promote it when I was a kid, and at some point I got burned out and just wanted to play games. And they're like, "Fine, well, screw you then. See if we help you again." But yeah, it's just I wasn't into it because it was so limiting. What could I really do with it? And some of my friends were not the best support group. Like, they would tell me to my face at lunchtime in the cafeteria. Like, remember one time he says, "Well, it's not my fault David's parents think he can draw." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know I can't draw. And everything's all pixelated. I'm trying to draw on the computer and make these characters and make books, and we're just making stickers. It's this big thing trying to promote this as a franchise." And so Omega Mouse is a continuation of the Jack and Max story. Omega Mouse is Max. And eventually, when the series takes off, I'll get back to doing prequels, and I'll explain the gap in the story that probably would have been told if I kept doing it. So better late than never.
So your dad not only ran the furniture store, but he, based on what you liked as a kid, you said DuckTales and Darkwing and all these early cartoons, he just created his own story universe?
He basically created the first two characters and said, "You create the rest."
Did he think you would turn this into a game at that time?
I doubt it, but at the time, he worked at a furniture store. He didn't own it yet.
Okay.
And he got a big bonus that year, so he bought a Gateway 2000. He spent like $2,500 on it.
Windows ME, I bet.
Dude, no, this is Windows 3.1.
Woo!
This is like the first.
Did it even have a CD drive?
At first, it did not. A CD drive came out, and you had to install it yourself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I think the Gateway 2000 he upgraded, and it did come with one, actually. Yeah, that's right. We had to upgrade when we got a CD-ROM burner. That's what it was. Because everybody was doing the Napster and burning CDs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You don't want to just read it. You need to burn it, too. And there used to be this whole thing back then of where you could laser etch images on to the disc itself. I don't know if they sell those anymore, but it was a pretty cool concept.
I never heard about that.
I think that's an incredible background. For it to come from you sort of your family, and you just keep growing it. I would love to see Omega Mouse continue to grow with your ability to be technical and deliver games. Like you said, you made one before. This is a kind of a new version of that. And based on what I played, I think there's a lot of potential there. And even if you keep it on a side scroller, I mean, you could really get deep with side stories, like tapping into Final Fantasy. I mean, why not get into an evil mouse who starts out as a simple babbling child and then turns into a demonic overlord ruler for the universe? Who knows?
Yeah, it's I guess the plan is this one's Omega Mouse 0, the next one will be Omega Mouse 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5.
So it's kind of a prequel, so to speak.
And each one is for that universe. So you're playing as the Omega Mouse from Universe 0,
Okay.
And then
Oh,
in
okay.
that game, so the goal of the first game is Prime comes and saves Zero, and then Zero goes and saves One, and that's Omega Mouse Zero. And then Omega Mouse One picks up where now you take control of Omega Mouse One to
Yeah.
go save Omega Mouse Two, and every Omega Mouse is slightly different with different powers.
I could see a very sad circumstance where Zero gets to one only at his last breath kind of thing and hands off the baton. Or are you going to do something dramatic like that? Or
I am doing that. I am doing that.
ooh, yeah, it's touching. That
Good.
it's gonna
That's
make
when
me
he gets the sword.
Ooh,
That's when he gets the Omega Sword. Yeah.
no, that'd be great. That reminds me. I don't know if you ever watched some of the modern animes, My Hero Academia, and it had this character called All Might, and he was effectively a superhero that was given his powers by the previous person of that super. So think Superman, and then Superman finds a successor, and he gives him his powers and trains him, and the person he gave his powers to becomes twice as powerful after he decides to retire, because he's not immortal, and he eventually has to age and die and all that jazz. So My Hero Academia set up this lineage, so to speak, and it was like this long line of generations of people passing down their compounded power to the next generation. And so I guess that's kind of like Avatar. I never really watched Avatar, but I've seen some things that's similar to that. I just think there's a lot of potential there where you could, really hand over that baton of power, and, they get stronger and stronger than the previous version. It's just like their powers are compounding.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love the multiverse concept, is you can kind of go anywhere. And I think that right now Marvel's kind of written themselves into a corner with it. And it's
You
become
can
a
say
little
that.
bit, it's a little convoluted now, and
Girl
it's not
power.
as so I just kind of want to like take a fresh, unique spin on it and come up with my own concept of how everything works, and try not to have plot holes. I'm always thinking about
Oh yeah.
plot holes when I'm thinking of a story. I'll think of a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Next day, I'll look at it again. And I'll go, well, that can't be true if it's like that. And how do you explain that? And what's the motivation behind that?
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's great. You don't want to Dragon Ball it where you just like solve your problems by transforming. Yeah, why not? Let's just transform to God times 10. Who's even watching?
So, my original storyline was basically Neuralink. The Omega Mouse gets the experimental surgery, and the Cats in Black put the chip in his brain.
Okay.
And then he becomes powerful. So that is kind of still like the original story. But I'm gonna tell that later. That's
you could do
aspect.
Assassin's Creed. They had a really good first one, and then later they started implementing backstory where they would do these time warps, and you would kind of see what happened. I don't know, however many years before you were playing. I've only played a couple of the Assassin's Creeds, but they were really fun gameplay wise, and then the way that they try to tie in. Oh yeah, this is the 8th game, but did you know this happened 400 years ago? And they would shoelace all that in. So it'd be interesting in your game. You get like a flashback, or the mouse comes across kind of a video terminal and is able to look at previous footage of it himself or other versions of himself in different universes, and see like getting tortured and getting certain plot answered, and to be able to move forward with a motivation. That'd be very interesting.
Yeah. Well, the main plot right now, as it stands, is that the Cats in Black dominate every universe except for one, and
I love that.
And that's Omega Mouse Prime. So now his mission is to go and try to save, or to liberate, every Omega Mouse so they can save themselves in their own world.
Which also kind of reminds me of The One with Jet Li, that old movie back in early 2000s. And,
that was a good one.
Yeah, and he was just like, oh, God, there's a guy going around killing everybody in the multiverse. This is years before Marvel even thought about doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
And this guy, talk about underrated film. I think it had DMX in it. The movie itself was odd, but it had a really interesting storyline to it. And Jet Li wasn't great at English, so they gave him limited lines. They probably should have cut it even more. But yeah, every time he killed somebody in the multiverse, or every time he killed himself in another universe, he became stronger. And so that was an interesting take on it all.
Yeah, the Highlander style.
Yeah. You're my bitch. That was Jet Li's greatest line.
I love
in all
those
movies.
Those shows on USA back in the day. They had Highlander and Renegade.
I can't help but to think of the I don't know if you ever watched Adult Swim, but Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and they had an episode on the Highlander where they were trying to like no, Frylock, the Highlander was a documentary and the events happened in real life.
You should do some voice acting as well.
Oh man, if I ever get the opportunity, I would love to, but I just never find myself in the right areas.
So, and the thing is, like doing voice acting is crazy too. Sometimes it takes me 20 takes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't get it right, and I almost feel like rewriting it because I feel like it's not coming out right. And then my last one I did at the end of the game, when you come across Shadowcat, I just was only doing a test run, wasn't even sure if it was going to record properly, and just decided to put all my energy into this run, hoping it worked, and nailed it the first time. And that rarely works out like that, but it feels good when it does.
Well, hey, if you ever need some extra voice talent, hit me up. I love to do stuff like that. So it's just good, pure enjoyment for me. So, with you're looking at releasing this game April 8th of this year. Is that how set in stone do you think that date is for you?
It's not set in stone. It depends on a lot of factors. I'm going to participate in the Steam Fest that's coming up.
Okay.
Just a few days. So we'll see how that goes. Finishing up my Kickstarter page. I'm going to do the basic campaign, see what kind of numbers I get. And if it really takes off, then I'll try to stick to that date as best as I can and get it done. And if it doesn't get a lot of attention, I might take a little liberty to touch it up and make it perfect. So,
if that's even possible in video games, right? Perfection is the white dragon that you're always chasing. The same with any art. I've had a lot of artist friends in my past that you would swear have a God-given talent and squander it. And it's just like, they're always chasing perfection, and that's their excuse. And it's like, no, you just got to make something. So I love to see how far you've gotten with it. You're still putting it out there. It's about the progress. So that's great.
I'd really like to know your opinion of more of the demo, because it's about, you could probably spend about an hour. It's got a lot of content. Yeah.
So I jumped into it. I love the graphics. I thought it was very visually appealing to look at. And I had gone through it a couple times to kind of get the hang of the shooting and the jumping and the shield mechanics. I love the ability to block. You may want to eventually add, if the levels get harder, something where the shield has like an endurance level. So like you can't just perpetually block forever while you figure out what to do. Like the blocking, the shield breaks or some kind of the ability to hold up the shield isn't there anymore. And so it forces the person to come up with an offensive strategy and keep moving forward. I don't know how challenging it gets down the road, but at least in the tutorial side of things, the cats dressed in suits, there couldn't have been assets for that. You had to draw that from scratch, right?
Oh, yeah. All the artwork, all the characters I modeled, yeah.
I noticed that he's running in like a spaceship, like a carrier spaceship of some kind, like a capital ship, because he's got all these UFOs in the background. What's up with that? What's kind of going on there? Is it anything in particular, or just a random backdrop you came up with?
It's the play off of the Men in Black, how they're always covering up aliens.
Okay.
And so the Cats in Black is just riffing off of that, and that's their mode of transportation.
You should
that they flying saucers, cats.
Yeah.
Saucers.
You should randomly like put a an Easter egg in the middle of the game somewhere where you have a Men in Black cat like goes up and slaps another cat or something, just like in front of everybody else. So what do you think was the most challenging aspect of putting this game together from where it is today?
The most challenging aspect is the uncertainty.
Huh.
That's pretty much it's whether or not what you're doing right now is going to pay off. And you have to think about that every day. It's the reality of the situation that what you're doing, you're putting all this time, all this energy into something that could just do nothing. And so the hardest part is to find your own internal motivation to be stubborn enough to just keep doing it,
Yeah.
no matter whether you're getting any kind of feedback or not. And every once in a while, you do have to step outside your bubble and get some feedback and bring it back home and digest it. But yeah, that's the toughest part, just keeping your head down and working.
I think I heard at one point that the most critical element to success, above all else, is simply focus. Doesn't matter what you're doing, game development, making movies, writing scripts, working your average rat race job. If what you're doing you love, it's all about consistency and the ability to focus. So I think you're spot on there. You don't have to identify anything technical because all that is a byproduct of your ability to push forward, your perseverance. And that's the dream of humanity, the ability to persevere. And so really hats off to you for accomplishing that in this example.
It's you have to make sacrifices. It's like I can't have a relationship, because this is what I do. This is what I spend all my time doing, and I can't give my time to somebody else. And so, I'm just grinding it out in hopes of a better future. It's like I don't want to get a normal job, and I don't want
right. Normal is hard to define, but yeah, where you're just out there applying, because you're either putting your focus towards something or you're giving your focus for somebody else. It's one of the two options, and neither is necessarily bad. It really depends on what you are trying to accomplish in 5, 10, 20 years. And some people just don't have a desire 10 years down the road. Some people don't care if they're alive in 10 years. So for each his own, but I think that's really powerful comment. And then expanding on that, what kind of advice would you give up and coming game developers, like people who play your game and get inspired by it? Is there something you want to tell them, or what kind of struggles would you help them out with?
Well, I do tutorials for Unreal Engine on my channel.
Nice.
And I got like 125,000 views on one video that I did that was a tutorial on how to move assets from Phase Shift that does motion capture, how to move it from there to 3ds Max and then get it into Unreal Engine. And that, for some reason, that just hit the algorithm and bam, it took off. And so I tried to do something on the side to make tutorials, a YouTube series, but it just never takes off. Nobody seems to be interested. But I do take a break from the game every once in a while and kind of think about doing that because I like to teach. My mom's a teacher. And, if I'm giving people advice, it would be to download Unreal Engine. And I would get 4. I wouldn't even get 5 because 5's still very experimental. And I've tried to port some of my titles to 5, and there's a lot of problems. And 4, I just think it's more simple. It's tried and true. And it does everything you're really going to need it to do, unless you're trying to make some super photorealistic game.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that. And then I'd recommend watching my YouTube series.
I'll have to add that to the links on the video that I upload. I want to put your website and Steam link and anything else you have to add. I think that's great. Tutorials, people love looking up how to do stuff. I hate to admit that one of my most successful past endeavors is one of 2 items. One, talking shit about not Lord of the Rings, but Rings of Power. That got a huge amount of reviews for some reason.
I think I fell asleep.
Yeah,
when I was watching
oh
it.
God, I have some opinions about that. And then my opinions are that it's not Lord of the Rings. All right, but anyways, the other thing is I did a tutorial rant. I don't even know how I put this together. It's almost like I look back on it. I'm like, what the hell? How did this come together? But I did a specific, like, this is an audio setting for OBS and Adobe Audition. And it got like 15,000 views. I'm like, what is this? And so, but people love being able to look up how to do their own thing. And I think that's a great side project to do and supplement to your game itself.
Also, another strong piece of advice is watch something that you want to do. Watch 3 or 4 different tutorials for the same thing. You want to find the most efficient way to do everything. Some people make a good tutorial, but it's an outdated way to do it. It's inefficient. Yep. There's always a better way. And my biggest regrets is not taking the time in the beginning to learn the fundamentals inside blueprints that help you really streamline all your variables and get things working with, like arrays, interfaces. There's all these technical things that are put there to help you so that you're not repeating tasks you shouldn't be repeating and wasting your time. You don't want to do that. If you find yourself spending too much time doing meaningless things that could be automated, they probably can be automated.
One of the first things I would encourage newcomers for anything, game development, or even just something like Photoshop, learn the hotkeys. Because when you're getting into, if you're just doing a 10-minute project for your mom, okay. But if you're getting into an entry-level professional position, you need to know the hotkeys, because you're not going to be able to get through this effectively if you're exploring everything and trying to find the options. And that's really 50% of learning every software, is just understanding the format of it. Where do I click this? How do I open this menu? How do I change this effect? So hotkeys are simple, but yet extremely powerful for the newcomer. And that's Unreal, that's Photoshop, anything Adobe, anything Microsoft. I'm sure that just expands from there. So that would be my add-on to that, is go after the hotkeys.
Oh, for sure. No, very, very useful. You want to get stuff done fast. You don't want to be sitting on a computer all day.
Yeah. I mean, you're already going to be on it for 8 hours, right? So don't make it 14 hours because you don't know where to click.
No, it can be draining some days. Where you're working on trying to fix something, and 5 hours go by and you're still working on it and you're sweating. You're like, what do I do now? Do I just move on from this? And then you weigh in your mind how important it is to the overall game, and you either finish it or you don't. So
yeah, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So
you got to make those decisions.
Speaking of the end of the day, tell me a little bit about your future plans. Like, if this does release in April, you had slightly mentioned you want to do a sequel to the game. Is there any other games you want to work on, or are you just going to dive in head first for a sequel?
I also want to release a cartoon series to supplement the games.
Oh, okay.
And because I love doing the cartoons, and there's a lot of animated sequences in the game.
Call me for the voice acting.
Hell yeah.
Do you have any other games that come to mind that you want to create, or are you just really going to throw all your cards in for the Omega Mouse project?
Yeah, I mean, I've been all in on Omega Mouse for probably 8 years now. When I first conceptualized it. That was 2016 when I first came up with it and started working on it. And that's what happens when you don't have a goal or a vision. You're just learning it. You just can keep going on. I went through so many transitions. If you go to my YouTube channel for Omega Mouse, you'll see hundreds of videos of showing what it looked like, all the transformations I went through. And it's gone through every transformation. It was a first-person shooter. It was this, it was everything. And But I think that it was necessary for me to switch it up when I had it
Yeah.
as an overhead game, and then when I got re-inspired by Metroid and made it a 2.5D platformer. That's when I really I got an energy boost. My second wind was ready to go.
That's awesome. I mean, think about where you were 5 years ago, and with your ability to continue to persevere, think about where you'll be in 5 years. It's almost hard to comprehend the direction that you'll be, but I truly believe that you're going to accomplish a lot in the next 5 years with the level of dedication that you've already demonstrated. So even if you start developing games and you have no goals, that is acceptable as long as you continue to work on it. And because you'll inevitably start to put all that together down the road. So I think that's really outstanding.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So the game again is Omega Mouse Zero. Go to OmegaMouseZero.com. It's going to be available on Steam. You can already play the demo on Steam right now. And eventually, the current date is April of this year, 2024. Maybe delayed depending on the next couple months of what goes on. But I don't see any reason why it won't fully release. So, David, this has been a real pleasure to sit down and speak with you about your game today. Do you have anything you want to add here at the end, or?
I'm just really excited about this festival. I was watching the video about marketing, and apparently this is a big one. How games get noticed are at these online festivals. So I'm pretty excited, a little nervous, and yeah.
I mean, really tote that you're a solo developer. I think that holds a lot of weight, and people appreciate that more when playing the game. It's like, wow, this is built by just this guy. And then after this, make sure to send me your YouTube channel link and anything else that you're working on so I can add it to this description and make sure everyone can follow what you're doing, because I think it's really unique, and I'm really excited to see what you do with it in the next half year. That's going to do it for Yeti Talks this session. I hope to have you again on in the future. If best of luck to you and your game Omega Mouse Zero. I think it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, that's going to be a wrap for us. So thank you so much, sir.
All right. I think your channel is definitely going to take off. You got a good speaking voice and good conversation.
Thanks. It's been years of contemplating suicide and all that. So, I finally made my way around some angle there, but that's the human struggle, right?
Yep. Right.
But
all right, man.
Fantastic, sir. Keep me in the loop. If you open up voiceover projects, let me know. I would love to help out there. Yeah, I just like to make things happen. So good luck, sir.
All right, cool, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.